Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, switching to my radio voice. And today I have with me Shannon Elsea, founder and CEO at SettlementDoneEasy, all one word, SettlementDoneEasy. Shannon, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Good, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Uh, Memphis, Tennessee, according to LinkedIn, and we're recording on March 13th.
Correct.
So is Memphis already in the heat of summer, or are you enjoying a
We're
little bit of a spring?
we are just coming into our spring. It's the really nice time. We're seeing buds on the forsythia come up and daffodils poke their heads out, but we have not quite greened up all the way yet.
Okay, so you got about 3 weeks of spring first.
Well, Memphis is a little persnickety. Sometimes we get a week and then it jumps into summer right away. We don't usually get to enjoy spring or fall very long.
Yep, that makes sense. So we always give the guest a chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Settlement Done Easy?
Well, to talk about settlement, Denny's, you need to know a little bit about my background, I think. I have been a personal injury lawyer for the last 30 years, helping people who've been in car accidents or falls or got hurt at work. And over that time, I have seen technology come in to help
Yeah.
make every part of a claim go faster.
Quick question.
Oh,
The highway sign in Memphis is it with the bow tie from your LinkedIn photo?
it is, yes, sir.
Fantastic. Okay, so during those 30 years, you've seen
I've
technology
seen
improve. Mhm.
Yeah, when I started practicing law in 1995, and our senior partner was very excited that our firm was at the height of technology because we had an IBM Selectric typewriter. It has changed quite a bit since then, but back in those days, when you settled a case, the insurance adjuster would mail the check and the release to you in the same envelope. You got them both at the same time, and while it sounds a little bit like old man yelling at clouds, the mail used to move a lot faster. Uh, but somewhere along the line in there, one of my brother lawyers failed to get a release back on a timely manner. And so they changed the paradigm. So they would be happy to send the money, but they wanted to have the release back first, which was inconvenient. But we all got fax machines around that time. And eventually we graduated to emails. And in 2020, we all started using DocuSign to get documents signed. And I would say probably 90 to 95% of all releases today are signed with DocuSign. But the part of that that has not changed in these 30 years is still, once that release is returned, insurance companies are printing paper checks that they're putting in the mail and sending to your office. It's because of the length of time that it takes for that to come in. That's something that is very frustrating, especially for customers or clients today, because 93% of Americans get their paycheck deposited in their account by direct deposit. You pay your mortgage online, you pay your light bill online. Nobody writes a check. In fact, there's a recent study that says that 40% of Americans have not written a paper check in the last year. And
Yep.
I think what we saw here was an opportunity to bring in technology to make these payments faster. And it solves problems for both sides of this equation. One of the things that we've discovered as we've built out Settlement Done Easy is that last year in the United States, over $1 billion worth of checks were stolen out of the mail and sold on the dark web. And when you couple that with 55% of all paper checks that were written last year were written by insurance carriers, it lets us know that this is a significant problem that insurance is having to face, that their banking information and the fraud that goes with these stolen checks, the dark web scares me silly anyway. But then you look at what this is doing. This is a huge problem that we have the technology with Settlement Done Easy to address.
Okay. So there's several payments companies that have brought in technology into insurance over the last, let's say, 5 years.
Right.
Um, how does it work with SettlementDoneEasy, and how is it different from those other providers?
Well, one of the issues and where we are uniquely positioned with this is we have lived in the ecosystem. We understand the ethical legal requirements that are placed on lawyers receiving these funds, and we have built Settlement Done Easy to handle and conform with those legal ethical requirements. Um, I have said in the past, this is not a banking problem. This is not an insurance problem. This is a law firm problem that has to be managed. And it can be, but because of the way money has to move in a personal injury scenario, we've had to build Settlement Done Easy to handle this. And you're correct. Insurance companies have been able to direct deposit money back to their insured. So I got a flat tire and had to be towed, paid the tow truck, turned the bill over to my insurance company, and they just put that money back in my account. We've done that for 15, 20 years. Where the problem comes in for insurance companies is when you're paying it a two-party payment. The checks are made out to the law firm and to the claimant, and for third-party claimants, people who are not their insureds, how do you set that up to pay them? And that's where Settlement Done Easy comes in.
Okay, got it. Um, when I so the checks thing is very funny. So I graduated college 2006, and got my first grown up job and direct deposit, and got my checking account, and they gave me a checkbook, and I used exactly one check a month to pay rent.
Right.
Nowadays, no, I haven't written a check in years and years and years. When I first started in insurance, 2009, at Farm Bureau of Iowa, handling very small claims, express claims lower than 10,000 in damages. I actually very much enjoyed printing the check, and I would walk around the floor, pick up everybody's checks, and get them mailed out. It was a little time away from my desk. And at that time, we did have the ability to do ACH already, even at a smaller carrier like Farm Bureau. But yeah, I wasn't dealing with attorneys, so it does make sense that yes, when you need multiple people included in that check, and there's attorneys involved, that gets more complicated. Okay, perfect. So with Settlement Done Easy, what does the payment process look like so that it can be
Absolutely. So what would happen is the carrier would set up an account on our platform, put in their banking information for the account from which they pay claims, and then that admin will invite all of the adjusters to set up a sub account. And so when they do that, they will log in. Now we require we have two-factor authentication. We require strong passwords for access. But once they get in, then the adjuster has a dashboard. They can look and see where the settlements they have are in process. They can create new settlements and walk that through. And so if they have a new settlement, they would click New Settlement, and then they have to put in 5 pieces of information: the claimant's name, the amount of the settlement, the claim number. They enter the tax ID number of the law firm with whom they're settling the case, and that pulls up a drop-down menu of all the lawyers that are associated with that tax ID. Then they select the lawyer they settled the case with, and they upload their release and hit submit. And when they do that, the lawyer gets an email, whether he's standing on a tee box or sitting at his desk. He can log in, download that release that's been attached to make sure it's for the correct amount, for the correct client and everything. And then he gets his client to sign it. Now, that may be a wet signature. that may be a DocuSign signature, or if he has a power of attorney, however he executes that document, he has it signed. Then he uploads the executed release back. When he updates that claim, it sends an email to the adjuster saying, hey, Shannon sent the release back. You need to go in and check it. They go in and check to make sure that it has been executed appropriately. And if it has, they click make payment. Then both sides get an email letting them know that the settlement has been set up to transmit. And then the money will be in the lawyer's account in 3 business days.
Fantastic. And the website on the very front page, for carriers, 50 cents per transaction.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. That's cheaper than printing it. That's like
It's cheaper than the stamp.
cheaper than the stamp. Yes.
Well,
So
and one of the realities in looking at this, I ran across that in 2024, the real cost that when you factor in paper, postage, and the labor that's involved to send a check in the mail is $5.91. So we ran the numbers for State Farm because, of course, State Farm's the big dog in the industry. If State Farm were to move their claim settlement to Settlement Done Easy, they could save over $43 million by using Settlement Done Easy instead of sending paper checks through the mail.
yeah, and that $5 number actually seems rather low. I had heard numbers as high as $25. I think those were from the banking industry. One time I received a 1 cent check from Wells Fargo, and I kind of wanted to frame it.
I had an account that had 72 cents in it, and I got a letter updating how much money was in that account. And I'm like, you spent 73 cents on the stamp to tell me I had 72 cents in my account.
Yep, compliance. All right. So and then on the lawyer side, it's $9 per transaction. Why is it more expensive on the lawyer side?
Well, because that's where the real pain is.
Okay.
As you have, and I'm at a conference today, and I settled a case last Tuesday. And when we got everything wrapped up, I sent the release back to the attorney. He told me it was going to be 30 days before I got my check. Now, bear in mind, this is a case we were set for trial last Thursday, so settled 2 days before trial. The case had been lingering on for 26 months. My client missed 2 weeks of work. He had ambulance bills that he was getting every month from the ambulance company, hospital bills he's getting every month from the hospital, doctor bills he's getting every month from them saying, you owe me, we're turning you over to collection. And then I have to tell him he has to wait 30 more days to get paid. And as we talked about, everybody gets paid electronically these days. And so having to have that conversation when my client thought finally he's going to get his head above water after 2 years. So that's where the pain is. That's where I will say when I settle a case for a client, almost uniformly, the first question I'm asked is, when can I pick up my money? So what this allows the attorney to do is to get that client paid in the time that they ought to be paid. They ought to be paid almost instantly. And so they can do this. And as it is set up, this is an expense that would then be passed on to the client. Just like we have to get a copy of the accident report, we have to get copies of medical records, and we pass those expenses in prosecuting the claim on. The attorney would pass this $9 on to the client. But I dare say that if you ask your client, would you rather have $10,009 in a month, or would you rather have $10,000 on Monday? The answer will be, I'll take $10,000 on Monday.
Makes sense. On the carrier side, does it integrate with claim systems like Guidewire and Duck Creek? Does it need to integrate?
Well, the reality is we can, but because some carriers use One Inc, some carriers use Guidewire, some carriers use Duck Creek, we can build an API to integrate into any of those platforms that would allow it to go to the accounting. It may be as simple for a smaller carrier that we can set it up where the adjuster gets the email that says the transaction has been approved, that goes to accounting so that they can update their QuickBooks. Or we can build an API that would integrate with whatever kind of accounting software they have that would let them know. But we have built it with that end open. We haven't set it up to integrate with any platform in particular, but it can be customized to integrate into those platforms.
Okay. Is there a setup fee or?
There is not. We to it, it we are looking for somebody to come in and beta. We don't have anybody using it. Now, I will tell you, I've moved money out of my savings account into my checking account a couple of times. So I know I can move money, but I'm looking for a carrier who is wanting to be on this cutting edge of innovation to be able to bring this forward, who we can work with. And so, other than the admin having to get in there and put in the information, which is not cumbersome, and to invite the adjusters to set up their account, we don't charge a fee to do it.
Perfect. I did just notice on LinkedIn. So you're listed as running the company for about the last 3 months. So I'm
Yes,
assuming
full time.
basically the last 3 months is kind of when it went live and you're ready for.
Well, I have always heard if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door, and I've discovered that's not necessarily true.
In our
Um,
industry, it 1,000% is not true.
well, so when we got started, I kind of thought, well, I'll call adjusters that I know and tell them, and they'll pass the word up.
Mhm.
And that didn't happen. So I said, let's go to InsurTech where I met you. So we were in Vegas in October and had wonderful discussions, met with a lot of people. But that's when we really determined if we want to see this succeed, this needs to be our full-time job. And so that's when at the end of the year, we started doing this full time, and making this our job to get this going.
Okay. So we've talked about the features of the product. What's the selling point to the carriers? I mean, one is it's extremely cost effective. Uh,
Extremely.
is that the main selling point? Is this a I want to save you money in your claims expenses play when it comes to the carriers?
I think save money in the claims expense and then remove those risks of the checks that are getting stolen. The FBI came out on January 27th and warned us Americans that check theft from the mail has increased 700% since 2022. This and people are in dire straits. I recognize that, but because of that, this kind of crime is just blossoming. And so when I see these stats, I thought, is this really going on? And I actually ran a Google search a couple of weeks ago, and this is something I saw articles from California to North Carolina, from Detroit to Houston, all talking about check theft out of the mail with the component that they're being sold to the dark web. So recognizing that is a problem, and I understand carriers are insured for checks being they buy insurance to cover that. But with the creativity of the fraud that's coming down, and knowing carriers like I do, whoever you bought your coverage with may tell you you don't have an endorsement for this kind of fraud. And there was actually a carrier out of upstate New York that fought that fight for 2 years. They were finally proven correct. They did have the correct coverage. The insurance had to pay, but that was 2 years that a $50,000 payment was out of everybody's pocket. And I don't know how much lawyer fees were, but you start looking at this and it's like, well, maybe there is a more cost-effective way. And with Settlement Done Easy, our money moves between paired bank accounts. There's not a physical check that can be lost or stolen.
Makes sense. Makes sense to me. Um, all right. On so my listeners are the carrier side, but I am interested on the attorney side. Are you seeing significant interest because it makes their
Yes.
life a lot easier?
It really does, and I will tell you, at least in the Memphis bar, there is a large contingent of lawyers that gather on a Friday to either complain about judges or complain about cases. And so this, of course, after a beer or two, will come up, and it is uniformly looked upon positively. Everybody wants this to exist because I have been a commissioned lawyer for 30 years. So if the money doesn't get in before payday, I don't get paid on it. Now, this is not necessarily something that the Morgan and Morgans of the world are worried about. Morgan and Morgan has so much money coming into that office on a daily basis that, waiting 30 days to get paid probably isn't going to keep them from keeping the lights on. But for smaller shops, law firms that are one or two lawyers, being able to get a settlement in a couple of days might allow them to pay for their office rent, might allow them to pay their paralegals or receptionists. And so this is the kind of thing that for a smaller firm to be able to have greater control upon the receipt of their settlements, not only to benefit their clients, but also to benefit those businesses, it can be a real enhancement or a real improvement on their cash flow and their ability to continue to practice.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. It's interesting. Yeah, never thought about that. I literally used to print the checks for the department and
Yeah.
and then like actually put them in the envelopes and mail them out. And it was a good time away from my desk. And at that time we were already pushing ACH and just not many would take us up on it. Uh,
Well,
but never thought about how complicated it gets once you have multiple parties on the check.
and
Uh,
that's when you think about it, when I receive that check from the insurance company for a client, some of that money is mine. Some of that money belongs to the office. Some of that money belongs to the doctor. Some of that money might belong to health insurance. Some of that money belongs to the client. And so all those factors kind of have to be weighed in how that moves. And again, I think coming from inside the problem, being a plaintiff's lawyer has given us the insight to be able to build this out. And again, it works in a way, thankfully, that really doesn't add any work to anybody's workflow. The adjuster's not having to put in a lot of additional time and effort to issue it. The lawyer's doing the same thing he would normally do, getting the release signed. The only difference is the speed with which it transmits. And I think that makes everybody happy.
it's and the way that you've priced it, it makes sense.
I,
It makes absolutely perfect sense. All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
sir.
for your time today.
Tony, it has been a pleasure.